Hey, JC here for retirecheap.asia. One of my great members in my membership site passed on some information to me that I wasn't aware of. There's a book that's going to be coming out by an author by the name of John Stapleton, and the book is called Thailand, Deadly Destination. And so they passed on this link of an interview that was done with John from the dailymail.co.uk. It's called Mail Online. And they interviewed this guy, John, about his book that was coming out. And my member passed on the link. So I read this thing and I'm like, what? Somebody needs to stand up. As I read through this thing, you know, I figured somebody needs to stand up and give a rebuttal to this. Now, I know this is just this John's opinion of Thailand, but some of these things I felt that I wanted to address from my point of view. If you're a fan of mine and you've seen any of my videos, you know that just from reading this, if I just read this out loud, you'd know that JC probably doesn't agree with all this stuff, and you'd be right. But I want to address some of these things that he mentions in here and give my opinion as well. Now, this might help promote his book by me doing this, which I don't really care about. I just wanted to voice my opinion in response to what this article, this interview said about Thailand and about Thai people. So, you ready? Here we go. And I'm just going to basically read through the article that was done by Simon Cable for Mail Online. And this is what it said. Now, this book gets put out, I guess, next week. Today is, I don't know, about the 17th of November, 2014. This came out yesterday, this article. And the book, I think, is being published next week or being marketed next week. But anyway, it says Thailand, one of the most dangerous tourist destinations on Earth. Expat investigation lifts the lid on the dark side of the land of smiles. You're already intrigued, aren't you? Fear sells. This guy was a writer and is a writer, and he knows how to sell with fear. Anyway, everybody's going to want to read this book, right? Not me. Okay, so anyway. And the thing about this is, if people read this and don't come to Thailand and there's less tourism, would that affect me in any way? Sure it would. I'd be happy. And I say that not because if you're thinking, well, that's a contradiction. Remember, what I try and do is help people that are unfortunately in a situation back home. They're facing a retirement and their fixed monthly income isn't enough to get by every day. And so places like Thailand, other places in Southeast Asia offer an option for them to be able to have more life for less money. So if less people came over for tourism purposes, I'd be okay with that. Thailand probably wouldn't. But in many parts of Thailand, there's just explosive growth. Chiang Mai is one of those places. There's a lot of them. Thailand has been put on the map. Chiang Mai, especially with Chinese tourism. And money, because of the floods in Bangkok, a lot of the money that was in Bangkok, as far as businesses were concerned and stuff like that, got moved around the country. And with tourism happening at a great pace in Thailand, a lot of that money is being pumped into tourism-related businesses. And so a lot of the infrastructure can't keep up with the growth. So there you go. Yeah, there's another example of people. Wait till you read this article. People over there being so friendly to me, smiling, inviting me over to eat, and I just sat down, as you can see, to do this. But anyway, which is going to be contradictory to what I'm going to read here. But anyway, I lived in Chiang Mai for over 9 years, and the explosive growth there has made it a place that I like to visit, but don't like hanging out too much, and because of the changes that have happened, the changes to Thai people, the changes within the infrastructure, it's overburdened, and things like that. But anyway, let's get back to the article. A new book has branded Thailand as one of the world's most dangerous tourist destinations. Australian author John Stapleton suggests that widespread police corruption, violence, and crime are all blighting a country once commonly referred to as the Land of Smiles. Well, it's still referred to as the Land of Smiles, and the reason why is just like these people over here. They're over there smiling to me, and they're very happy people, and they're friendly people. In his book, Thailand, Deadly Destination, Mr. Stapleton attempts to expose the reputation of Thailand as a welcoming country, claiming a boom in tourism since 1960s has created, get this, a hatred of foreigners and a murderous indifference to the millions of tourists who flock to the country's white sand beaches, picturesque countryside, and thriving nightlife each year. Now, I got to tell you, I've seen how a lot of foreigners behave when they come over, and how they get treated as a result of that. And if you leave the areas that are high tourist destinations, the Thais are different. It's even been brought to my attention, and this has come up in my membership site, about the word Farang. I use it. Thais use it. It would be like in America, we would say, we'd see somebody that was Asian and call them Asian. We wouldn't know if they're from Thailand, Philippines, Cambodia, Myanmar. We wouldn't know, so we just group them together as Asians. Same with the people do with Arabs. You know, you can tell what kind those people are of a different descent. And so for us, Caucasians, and there's a lot of different ideas of where the word Farang came from. But some people get real offended by it, and I ask them why, and they say, because, you know, the people are Farang, Farang, and I'm thinking, well, that's interesting. That would be like me being back home and saying, you know, having Asian friends, and I said, oh, they're Asian. And those people that were Asian, I heard me say that, wouldn't feel bad at all. But if somebody saw them driving the way they do here back home, they go, oh, those Asians. And I think what's happening when people were offended by the word Farang, it's how it's being used against them. It's a reflection, a mirror being put up of how what they're putting out and what's coming back to them. And I think a lot of this is the same. This guy's experience here might be a reflection of him and not necessarily the country as a whole. But anyway, back to this. The country's much prized tourist industry, which accounts for 10% of the GDP, is in decay following more than 12 months of political unrest. Now, I did a video on YouTube, and it was the day after the coup, and I was in Cha'am, and I showed what it was like. If you didn't watch the news, you didn't read the newspaper, you wouldn't even know what happened. But what happens is that as the news gets reported overseas, people see it and they freak out and say, oh, I'm not going to go to that country, it's dangerous, there's a coup going on. But that was just like when the tsunami happened, I was over there, and people say, are you safe? And I said, I'm in Chiang Mai. You know, that's like going from New York to Florida in distance. I mean, come on. I mean, so people see these things on the news just like this. They're going to read this book or whatever and generalize that this is correct for all of Thailand, and it isn't. In fact, it was speaking about the coup, I'll tell you, there's a lot of things that have gotten better since the coup. I got to tell you. So anyway, but my opinion, this is all, I mean, state my opinion just like he states his. Anyway, he also says that the death rate among tourists, which he claims often goes unrecorded, is the worst scandal in the annals of modern tourism. He knows how to write, I got to give him that. Thailand's carefully manufactured reputation for hospitality as a land of palm trees and sun-drenched beaches, happy hour bars, world-class hotels, and welcoming people as paradise on earth is very different to the reality many tourists encounter. Mr. Stapleton says in his book, which is being published next week. The rapid growth in Thai tourism has been a triumph of advertising and image creation, building the perception firmly entrenched in the West that Thais embrace strangers. Well, those people over there were embracing me. They must not be Thai, right? Anyway, in reality, the relations between ethnic Thais and foreigners are often difficult, and there have been growing friction and disengagement, a drift from curiosity to contempt as visitor numbers have increased. Now, one thing I'll tell you, I agree that where they're besieged by these foreigners, massive amounts of tourism, with people coming in and have different values, different customs, it is difficult for Thai people. If you've ever been in a tourist industry, you know, I came from Florida, which was a, you know, tourist mecca. And it's difficult dealing with people from different countries, you know. I think you get paid more the more tolerant you are, not jumping over the counter and wanting to strangle people. Yeah, it is difficult. And I can see where people in some areas are tolerating the people, but that's just like any other job, that people dislike what they do, but they do it for money. And I think in the tourist industry, that's reflected a lot here. You know, it's hard to put up. I see the behavior of some of these people. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't put up with them. In fact, I've actually stepped up and said something to people. I was in a subway once in Pattaya. It was one of my members, I think, was in there at that time. But anyway, I had to say something to some guy that came in, and unfortunately, he was an American guy. And he actually yelled at the people behind the counter that they weren't putting enough stuff on his Subway sandwich. And I told him, hey, give the people a break, because he threatened to walk out if they didn't put more stuff on his sandwich. And I said, dude, you walk out, they're going to have to pay for the sandwich. Why are you doing this? You know, there's limits. You know, they're taught a certain way to do this. Anyway, back to the article. While many foreigners leave the country happy, there are equally thousands of travelers from Europe, America, Australia, India, and the Middle East, both short-time tourists and long-time residents, leaving the country impoverished, distressed, frightened, and unlikely to ever return. If, with the number of accidental deaths of tourists a common event, likely to ever return, if, with the number or accidental deaths of tourists a common event, they leave at all. Life in Thailand is cheap, and the deaths of foreigners often go unlamented, even unrecorded. Tourists are still given few warnings of the reality of the situation they are entering. Mr. Stapleton previously worked as a news reporter for the Sydney Morning Herald from 1986 to 1994, and for the Australian between 1994 and 2009. He's been visiting Thailand since the 1970s before moving there in 2010. So if it was so bad, why did he decide to move here? I guess since 2010 it got horrible, huh? Anyway, after being reportedly robbed and attacked. At this point, I'm questioning what this guy's lifestyle is like here in Thailand. He began looking into news reports on the welfare of tourists, which he describes as scandalous, suggesting that the police have little interest in helping foreigners who report crimes. Figures released by the British government show that between 2011 and 2012, there were 296 British deaths in Thailand. In the 12 months up to April 1st, 2013, there were 389 British deaths in Thailand, while in the same period up to April 2014, there were 362 deaths and 267 hospitalizations of British tourists. What's interesting when people throw out numbers like this, you know, they say 389, you go, wow, it's a lot. Well, we don't know what percentage that is of people coming over here. You know? It doesn't say 389 out of how many. In fact, it did say somewhere in here, I think, how many people came, the British. Here, 860,000 British tourists travel to Thailand each year, and that was 389 deaths. What percentage is that? I don't know if that's high or low compared to other countries. But I do know, after reading that, I did some research about Australia. And the Australian government, the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs, I looked this up, and Trade recorded 904 Australians who died overseas in 2012, a 13% jump from the year before. So that 13% jump, I was just wondering, is it more dangerous out in the world now, or just more Aussies traveling? I don't know. But in 2012, Australian overseas deaths, top 100 countries, and I'll give you the top 5, they rank. Number 1 was Thailand, 111 deaths. Philippines 68, Greece 60, Vietnam 54, and the U.S. was number 5 with 51 deaths of Australians in 2012. But again, there's no percentage of numbers. We don't know how many people traveled to Thailand compared to the percentage of how many people traveled to the U.S. If twice as many people traveled to Thailand and there was twice as many deaths, I can understand it. Also, it is more dangerous here, and I'll talk about that in just a second. I mean, why is Thailand more dangerous to me? Because there's less regulation. I read just the other day about, I think it was a British kid who dove off of a tower or something into a lake or something and died. Now back home, you wouldn't have been able to dive off that tower. There would have been notices or restrictions or lifeguards or all this stuff, so people can't do that. I did a video on YouTube about taking responsibility. If you come over here, you know, back home, at least in the United States, the government tries to protect people from themselves. If there's a root from a tree and it pushes up the sidewalk this much, they'll come out and tear out the root, tear out the sidewalk, repave it so smooth so people don't trip, hurt themselves, and sue the city. And so people don't have to take much responsibility anymore. And I told people, I told you in that YouTube video, I said, take responsibility if you come over here. It's going to be more dangerous. You have to pay attention. You have to be on your A game all the time. What I see Farang's doing over here on a daily basis is just bizarre. I see people renting these high-end motorbikes and going down the side of the road, which is different from their own country, going without a helmet, weaving in and out of traffic. Well, why would they do that? They wouldn't do it back home because they can. I did another video. Just because you can doesn't mean you should, and that's a great example of that. And also I see in these high tourist areas where the Thais are taking on values of foreigners, which is not good in my opinion. It's like, you know, I see the foreigners raising their voice and arguing, which Thai people traditionally don't do. There's a whole thing about, when I first started coming over here, that was put out by the Royal Press, and there was a thing about that, of things about Thai people and raising your voice and arguing wasn't kosher for Thai people to do. And but now they're starting to do it more and more because the soap operas, they call them Thai movies, are showing more and more Thais taking on Western values. They live in these big houses, they're stealing, they're cheating, they're doing all these bad things, just like Westerners do, which wasn't traditionally the Thai way over here. And now it has become that way. And no matter what you do over here, one thing you got to always remember, Thais are tolerant up to a certain point. You push them beyond that point, look out. And one of the ways you can push them beyond that point is making them lose face. Back home, you know, it became popular to call people out on stuff, you know, to say something about people. If you caught them doing something, you'd bust them on it. Here you don't do that. You'll make them lose face. Just keep quiet, move on, and don't participate, and don't use their service or their business or whatever. Again, that's the way Thai people traditionally did it. Don't call attention to them doing something wrong. You'll get a really strong reaction. It's the Thai way. It's an Asian way, losing face, actually. So, back to this. Mr. Stapleton said the attitude of murderous indifference, oh, I love that, to the welfare of strangers is ingrained enough in the Thai psyche for it to justify formal government warnings to the many hundreds of thousands of tourists venturing into the what? Bars and clubs of Thailand on a nightly basis. Where? Venturing where? That's right, to the bars and clubs of Thailand on a nightly basis. Again, what demographic is he referring to that he's, you know, commenting that this kind of stuff happens to? If this is the kind of people in the lifestyle he was living, I can see why he has these feelings. Is he talking about the average trekker or family that comes over and hangs out on the beach or goes trekking or something? Or is he talking about, you know, party-going people coming over to take advantage of having less regulations here? I see people get high over here. I say, you know what the drug laws are? You're stupid. There's even higher regulations here, and people still do this crazy stuff. So anyway, back to the article, it is standard operating procedure in Thailand for the bars and clubs to pay bribes to the local police and municipal authorities in order to be able to open their doors. If a bar, club, or parlor does not make this payment, in all likelihood, they'll be closed down. That is true. And it takes, I just did this article because they're trying to clean up the new, the interim government's trying to get people to get off the sidewalks, that the Thai sidewalk should be for Thai people. And they're running businesses on there. And the way they run business on there is paying people. And that's how they do it. You know, it's the way things work here. And it'll continue until it doesn't. But I've always said the laws, especially traffic laws here, aren't really laws. They're more suggestions. And they're flexible, and that's the reason I live here. One of the reasons is because it's more flexible here. If all of a sudden all this becomes too regulated, I'll be looking for a new place to go. Anyway, the police are not acting in the best interest of the visitors making complaints for the simple reason that they're being paid by bar and club owners. The commonplace complaints of tourists about being robbed are simply shrugged off. Now, if a bar or one of these businesses creates more of a problem and get more complaints, guess what's going to happen? If they are getting paid, the police are going to say, hey, you're a troublemaker, you're causing more problems for us, you need to pay more. So if the bar or business owner had to pay more, are they going to rein themselves in and control this stuff so they don't have to pay more? Sure, it's the way the process works. Just a different way of doing it, right? My coffee. Got to be careful putting it down the rocks because my lovely assistant the other day put down a cocoa shake on the rocks, and a rat ran out and grabbed it and started drinking it. And so, but again, that wouldn't happen back home because there'd be more regulations. So, Eddie Cup, how are you? Is that by D Mai? Terrible people. Why are they smiling at me? Anyway. Yeah, back to the article. As well as the number, okay, so it says are simply shrugged off. As well as the murder of two British backpackers, which was horrific in Koh Tao. In September, there was a bloody military coup this year. In the first 9 months of 2014, there were more than 2 million fewer foreign tourists who visited Thailand with the same period a year previously. And I understand that, you know, what goes out over the news wires and everything are all these horrific reports of, you know, murders, 2 people, and the coup, you know. And so people say, hey, there's other places to go to, and I understand that. From the initial forecast at the end of last year of 30 million foreign visitor arrivals, Thailand's Ministry of Tourism and Sports are now forecasting, now this is a future, they don't know, 25 million foreign visitors in 2015. Talking about the country's widespread crime. Now, Thailand, the country of Thailand, like any other, has widespread crime. But the crime that goes on outside of these high tourist areas, what I call my no-fly zones, aren't the kind that he's reporting here. Of course there's countries' widespread crime. There's crime everywhere. Mr. Stapleton adds, visitors to Thailand are not warned by travel agents, airlines, or their own governments that their passports are highly prized in Thailand. They're highly prized everywhere, not just Thailand. Don't let go of your passport. Depending on the nationality, a passport can fetch thousands of dollars on the black market. Several months' pay for Thais, more than several months' pay, I can tell you that. And the thing about this, you know, average Thais don't have a clue about passports or the value of them or anything. Some of them don't even know what passports are. So to think that every Thai person is out there to try and steal your passport is absurd. There are gangs stealing passports to order. European, American, Australian, Canadian passports are particularly prized. There's an established practice across the country of bike, car, jet ski, and other rental services requiring passports as collateral. When punters return to claim their documents, they've disappeared. Now, fans of mine know, you know, from watching my videos, that I tell you, never part with your passport. Look for someplace that will rent you the motorbike. Maybe you can leave something as collateral, maybe money or something like that, but don't leave your passport. Leave a copy of it. Do whatever it takes. Don't leave your passport. This is common sense. as well as not even being yours to hand over. Actually, it's the government's document, not yours. They're actually entrusting you with it. In fact, if you're British, you can turn to page 2. The passport, it says on page 2 of a British passport, this passport remains the property of Her Majesty's government in the United Kingdom and may be withdrawn at any time. It should not be tampered with or passed on to an unauthorized person. So these people that are giving over their passports are fools. That's just my opinion, though. I mean, I've gone into places, motorbike rentals, I see them open a drawer that's got this little tiny lock on it, and the whole drawer is filled with people's passports that have left them there. And 99% of the time, they're there when they get back, unless they were robbed. But the people that own the business don't just steal the passports. But in some places, again, my no-fly zones, that would be a possibility. And you're probably saying, what are those no-fly zones, JC? Well, maybe I'll tell you, I'm not sure. So anyway, but as you know, thinking it's prolific that everybody's out to see your passport, and it is by law you're supposed to carry it at all times. So if you're a tourist here, so giving it up isn't cool that way either. If you got stopped, which is now happening more often because of people abusing or overstaying their visas, if you got stopped and they want to see your passport and the visa, you wouldn't have it. You'd have to go back to the rental place, which isn't cool either. So Stapleton adds the daily robbing, bashing, drugging, extortion, and murder of foreign tourists on Thai soil, along with numerous scandals involving unsafe facilities and well-established scams, has led to frequent prediction that Thailand's multi-billion-dollar tourist industry will self-destruct. Daily robbing, bashing, drugging, extortion, and murder. Wow. Where's this guy hang out? Not sure. The book's author claims that those who know Thailand well were unsurprised by the murder of 2 British tourists who were killed in an attack on the island of Koh Tao in September. He said the international coverage of the recent brutal killing on Koh Tao has highlighted what many long-term observers of Thailand already knew, that the tourist industry is poorly managed and the Land of Smiles has become to justifiably be regarded as one of the most dangerous tourist destinations on earth. The UK government has issued official warnings about violence to the 860,000 British tourists who travel to Thailand each year. Asked why he decided to write the book, Stapleton told the Mail Online, "At the beginning of 2010, uncertain of what to do next after leaving my full-time journalism job, I decided to head to Thailand, which I remembered fondly from previous visits. It only came to me slowly after having, get this, my drinks reportedly spiked, being robbed, bashed, and having my passport stolen." Sorry about that. We had a technical issue. People say, when you do those interviews, why don't you let people talk more? It's because of this. We have a limited amount of recording. This isn't professional. This is just me out having a good time. So if you're expecting perfection, you came to the wrong place. Anyway, and if you're expecting perfection coming over here, you're coming to the wrong place. There certainly isn't perfection here. And just to be clear, I've never had a drink spiked. I've never been bashed. I've never had my passport stolen. I did live in Pattaya for about 2 years, and it's not representative of the rest of Thailand. And so I had to move out of there. I didn't feel like I was in Thailand. And during that time, I actually was driving down the road and on a motorbike, and I had a backpack with a laptop in it, and it was in the basket in front. And an organized gang who stole cars, phones, computers, all this stuff. He actually went to pass me on a turn and a car was coming, and so as he was passing me, we moved over to let the car come because there's only a 2-lane road, and as soon as that car passed, he just reached out and grabbed the backpack and took off with it. And I tried following him at about 110K or something on this little bike through the streets of Pattaya, and I went, I'm going to get killed. And so that's representative of the things that happen in some of these no-fly zones, and Pattaya is on my no-fly zone. But you get out of those areas, I've seen people in bus stations and train stations and stuff, they have their bags, they let their bags sit there and they go to 7-Eleven and just leave the bags. Nobody's like watching them to steal it. Now in some places that would happen, but in most of Thailand, it isn't a reality. And so, you know, this view that this guy's got is just amazing to me. And I understand that it's here. You know, just like other people say, there's a lot of things here that Thailand's got a bad reputation for. In the 14 years, 15 years I've been living here, and of the 20-something odd years I've been coming here, 30 years something I've been coming here, I've never even seen that stuff. And so, anyway, so back to the article. This was John saying, I badly wanted to live in Thailand and spent more than 3 years in and around Bangkok. Bangkok. Now, if you've never been to Bangkok, we're talking New York City, Mexico City, Rio. This is a big city. So the values there are a lot different than any other place. Is Bangkok on my no-fly zone? Certain areas of it is. Anyway, unlike many expatriates and tourists, I spent a lot of time with the Thais themselves. Now, if he's getting bashed and his drink spiked and stuff, what kind of Thais is he hanging out with anyway? Having spent so much time with them, I finally became to understand how they thought and to understand that they actively dislike foreigners, have no compunction in robbing them, and their cultural distaste for foreigners and ultra-nationalistic pride in their own country fuels and justifies the crimes against tourists. My members know. Every week I do a weekly update. And in the last, I don't know, 6 months or so, I've been going out and adding translations at the end of these weekly updates where I just nonchalantly walking and strike up conversations with people. And they're unrehearsed, unannounced, and so my members know what Thai people are like just from watching this on a weekly basis. And so to generalize Thai people saying that they have a cultural distaste for foreigners, it's not true. Remember, Thais as a whole, you got to remember, Thais as a whole are making about $10 a day. That's the minimum wage here in Thailand. And they see foreigners in places like Pattaya coming over, chasing the Thai women, wanting to shag them. And they're eating meals that one meal costs more than they make in a week. And so you can imagine how they feel seeing that and seeing themselves, and then see some of these people and say, well, they're not even nice people and they're doing this. You know, to have a little bit of animosity, I think is normal. I would. But Thais as a whole are very honest people. I've had people run after me. I've actually left change at a counter and gone out, you know, quickly. And all of a sudden, I have people chasing me down. Hey, hey, hey! And I'm like, what? And they say, you left your change and give it to me. It's, you know. And just last week, there were 2 reports of taxi drivers where I think it was a Brit actually, left, I forget the equivalent of almost $1 million baht in a taxi, $25,000, and the taxi driver returned it to him. And then another one, I think they were Indonesians, and it was 2 million baht or something, and the taxi driver returned it. So, you know, these generalizations about Thailand in this book is just, I don't know, where this guy's getting off doing this. But anyway, he added, unfortunately, with millions of tourists besieging the country, the locals' response to foreigners has gone from curiosity to contempt. And like I said, just like anybody that has a job that they dislike, and it's tough in the tourist, and this is happening really bad in Chiang Mai right now with the Chinese because of their different cultural differences. In fact, I've actually stopped the Chinese. Chinese will stop in the middle of the road on a rented motorcycle with a map in their hand in the lane of traffic and stop to look at the map, and I'll pull up and say, get off the road, get out of the road. You know, somebody's going to run you over. They're going to be texting because they text over here and drive, Facebook and Line and all this stuff, and they'll just get run over, assuming nobody stopped in the road. And this is why the deaths are so high here, because people come over and do crazy stuff over here. You know? It's just nuts. But anyway, where were we? Overwhelmed with millions of tourists, many of whom appear to save their worst behavior for the streets and bars of Thailand. Cries of "My chop Farang." I don't like Farang. And Thailand is for Thais can be heard from one end of the country to the other. Well, now we're talking. I agree that many Thais don't like foreigners in those high tourist areas because of their behaviors. In my opinion, we reap what we sow. Those who think that mishaps only befall those who are misbehaving and are fooling themselves. Well, one of the things about that is that people don't know they're misbehaving or offending Thai people. Last week or the week before, I was in a movie theater in Chiang Mai. And before the movie starts, every movie theater, they play this thing about the king, and you stand up to show respect for the king. I stood up, the Thai people stood up, most people stood up, but there were some Asians from another country who didn't stand up, and foreigners didn't stand up. Now, they didn't say stand up. And some of them do. It'll say, please stand for show respect for the king. But this one didn't, and they didn't stand up. Now, you couldn't offend a Thai person more by showing disrespect to their king. But the foreigners don't really know that. And so a lot of things are happening to people that they're showing behaviors that are disrespecting the Thai people or insulting them, and they don't even know it. Because people don't do any research into the culture of Thailand before they get here. One of the worst things you can do is Sawadee Cup, Sabai Mai. สบายดีขายดีไหมคนเล็กครับคนเล็กเหรอขอบคุณครับ See, Thai people are so unfriendly. That guy was just selling eggs. That's egg salesman. Hard-boiled eggs and little quail eggs. Hard-boiled. One of the worst things you can do here is to make a Thai person lose face. So if you don't bust them on anything, like I said before, because that'll insult them as well. Don't call somebody out on stuff over here. You'll insult them. So anyway, back to the article, and then we'll finish this up. We'll wrap. It's going longer than I thought it would. Brits are warned that assaults and robberies are reported regularly in the Koh Samui archipelago. The Foreign Office warns British travelers. Western tourists, including British nationals, have been the victims of vicious, unprovoked attacks by individuals and gangs in Koh Samui, Koh Phangan, and Koh Tao in the Samui archipelago. In 2013, a British national was killed in a shooting incident while, at a beach party, which goes on all night, heavy drinking, drugs, in Hat Rin on Koh Phangan. And in September 2014, 2 British nationals were killed in Tao. It adds, violent sexual assaults and robberies against both men and women are reported regularly in the Koh Samui archipelago and in Krabi province. Krabi is also Phuket, the Krabi province, Krabi province. Another one on my no-fly zone? Yep. These are particularly common during the monthly full moon parties and generally occur late at night near where? Bars. Are you starting to see a pattern here? I hope so. A spokesman for the Tourism Authority of Thailand dismissed the claims of Mr. Stapleton of the dangers facing tourists, calling them an exaggeration, which I agree with. I'm not saying they don't happen, but they're not to the point of where, you know, it's, what was this, the most dangerous place on earth or something? TAT, which is a Tourism Authority of Thailand, is disappointed to hear of this, but as an organization has much confidence in Thailand as a tourist destination, as do the 860,000 growing number of British travelers who visit Thailand annually. They enjoy a safe and trouble-free time, and 65% of repeat tourist arrivals is testament how much they love Thailand and wish to return. Accident, robberies, and death are not exclusive to Thailand. Sadly, we regret tragic news stories about tourists traveling all over the world. The author, John Stapleton's book title is somewhat an exaggeration. We're certain that those who come across this book will conclude themselves that Thailand is by no means the most dangerous country in the world to visit. That was from TAT over here. So is it dangerous? Sure, it's dangerous compared to back home where you can anticipate the rules and laws being followed. It's like this. If you came over here and were running up and down the beach and you wanted to play football and you're going to play European-style football, but the Thais you're playing with are playing with American football rules, there'd be chaos. And that's what's happening. A lot of people are coming over here with their rules and values and stuff and thinking that they apply here, and they don't. I've tried to say this over and over. You heard me harp on this. Tourist safety remains of utmost importance and priority to the Tourist Association of Thailand. Thailand accepts that some of the country's safety and security measures need to be improved, and just this month the Prime Minister of Thailand and Minister of Tourism announced several new measures to upgrade and improve safety standards within the travel and tourism industry. As always, we recommend tourists exercise common sense and courtesy, be considerate and respect their local culture and law when traveling abroad to ensure a problem-free and rewarding holiday. So let me wrap this up after I have some coffee. Anyway, are some of these things true? Absolutely. But that goes for all tourist destinations. I mean, I've been in Brazil, lived in Brazil. I've been in Costa Rica. I've stayed in both these places, stayed in Latin countries, stayed in other Asian countries as well. In Costa Rica, Brazil, if you live in a house that's in a community and you pay security, you pay a guy that goes around on a bicycle or a motorbike to secure your house. You know what you're paying him for? So he doesn't break into your house. It's common there. That's what you do. You just pay. You have a vehicle, you have a car, you go eat at a restaurant. Guess what you do? You pay somebody to watch your car so it doesn't get broken into or stolen. If you don't pay the guy, guess who's breaking in or stealing your car? And that's my opinion. But I mean, to think that, there's paradise anywhere, paradise is between your two ears. That's where it lies. You either look at things as being half empty or half full, the glass half empty or half full. If you want to look at all the bad stuff, like this guy does, you can see it, you can find it here. But for me, that's not the way I see it. I never felt safer in any place I've ever been than in Thailand. The places I stay in Thailand anyway. But stay away from the no-fly zones. And if you wonder where the no-fly zones are, just go to Google, type in crime Thailand, you'll see. 90% of the problems come from 2% of the areas of Thailand, and those are high tourist areas. I say crime towards foreigners, okay? And that's what will come up if you do a English search. Remember, remember if you come over, there's a lack of people to fill jobs here. And so what's happening is tourist areas. Now, back when I first came over here, locals were the workers, the employees in businesses. And like I said, remember about losing face? No child would create a problem that would reflect bad on their family. It wouldn't happen. So they had to toe the line. But now what's happening in these high tourist areas, they're having to bring people in because there's not enough people to fulfill the job, the employment there, so people are coming in from other areas. So they can get away with doing stuff, and if they don't get away with it and they get in trouble, nobody back home in the village knows that they had a problem, that they're in jail or whatever. So they try more things because they know they can get away with it and not have their family lose face. So that's what's happening in these other areas and why more Thai people are straying from their values, along with those movies they call them, but they're soap operas. They're not good for Thai people anyway. So anyway, so if you're going to come to Thailand to live or just to visit, there's some guidelines, and the chances are you'll be fine. Just follow a couple guidelines. One is be polite and be respectful to Thai people. Remember, you're a guest here. I've seen some people, if they acted the way they do, that I see them acting, and they were in my house, I'd ask them to leave. If I was Thailand, I would ask them to leave. And the Thais are very tolerant. I've seen some bad stuff happen here, and they don't tell these people to leave, which I would, actually. But be respectful, be polite. Fly under the radar. Don't wear gaudy jewelry. Don't flaunt your wealth. Don't be boisterous. Don't be loud and obnoxious. These are just sort of rub Thais the wrong way. You won't find Thai people doing that behavior. If you go to these no-fly zones where there's heavy tourism, it is going to be more dangerous. Use your intuition. If something doesn't seem right, if somebody seems too friendly and they're speaking English, stay away from them. Don't be naive. Use your same rules and your same thought process as you do back home to protect yourself over here. I see people come over and they get in a relationship the first week and they're talking about marriage and stuff. I said, if you dated somebody back home, how long would it be before you'd even mention the word marriage? Why do you throw out all your rules when you come over here? It's just crazy what I see people do. But for me, this is my home, and the Thai people have made me feel for the most part, very content and happy. You saw an example of that why I'm doing this. And I thank him for that. So that's what I have to say about this. So, JC signing off. Cup, Kun Cup, Chokdi Cup, Sawadi Cup. เอามามองไหมเอาไหมเอาเหรอสวัสดีครับสบายดีไหมสบายดีสบายดีขายดีไหมขายดีอันนี้50 very good 50 บาทขอบคุณครับ thank you bye byeสวัสดีครับสบายดีไหมสบายดีครับเอาอะไรดีวันนี้ขนมจีนครับอะไรครับ15 บาทครับ15 บาทครับผมขอบคุณครับครับthank you bye bye Hello Hello Very good เก่งมากว่ายเหรอ Very good สวัสดีค่ะสวัสดีค่ะ Hello Hello Okay แตงกวาภาษาอังกฤษแตงกวาเรียกว่าอะไรลืมแล้วทำไมลืมแล้ว cucumber 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 เอา cucumber ไหมเอาไหมให้พร้อมนะให้คุณนะให้คุณให้คุณโอ้อันนี้ภาษาอังกฤษเรียกว่าtomato tomato มะเขือเทศ yeah onion yeah very good I'll have some onion tooอันนี้อะไร lettuce จำได้ very good you remember potato โอ้เก่งมาก very good โอเคสวัสดีครับพูดภาษาอังกฤษได้ไหม
พูดภาษาอังกฤษได้ไหม
ไม่ได้หรอ
ไม่ได้เรียนครับ
ไม่ได้เรียนนะ
เรียนนิดหน่อยสวัสดีว่าไงลูก
very good
สวัสดีตอนเย็นว่าไงลูก
ไม่รู้เลย afternoon hey very good yeah so So as you can see, it's a very hostile and unfriendly place. So if I were you, I'd be careful coming over. Anyway, this is just my life in Thailand. I don't know about anybody else's, but for me, it's not the way it's interpreted in the book. So anyway, that's it from JC. See ya.